Namaskar, my name is Prasoon Raj and I welcome you to Vishwarang 2020 from Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates. We are delighted to bring on board Dr. Kaustubh Kanti Ganguly and Ms. Nandini Roy Chaudhary, who are research scholars based in Abu Dhabi as well as practicing Indian classical musicians.
Kaustubh is a professional Hindustani vocalist from the Patiala Gharana, as well as an engineer and a musicologist. He did his PhD from IIT Bombay and is currently a postdoctoral researcher at New York University, Abu Dhabi. He has performed on major stages worldwide and is well recognized by several awards for his musical proficiency. At the same time, he is also well known in the global research community for his experimental work on music production, analysis and pedagogy, with the view to converge his knowledge in both the music and the technical fronts.
We also have with us Nandini, who is a freelance historian based in Abu Dhabi, a graduate of Presidency College, Kolkata, and an MPhil from Jadavpur University, Kolkata. Nandini is interested, among other things, in South Asian global intellectual historical discourses. She is also a trained Hindustani classical musician, and she is more inclined towards semi-classical genres and has a keen interest in learning the Rabindra Sangeet, Nazrul Giti and other forms of Bengali music. She also knows Western choir and has been providing online medium lessons in vocal training as well as vocal culture.
We present to you a collection of our conversation with Kaustubh and Nandini. In this, we connect innovative and insightful work on artificial intelligence and music, confluence of the Indian classical music and its semi-classical and lighter or popular genres, and the evergreen Rabindra Sangeet.
I welcome you all to join us in this conversation with Kaustubh and Nandini and look forward to the snippets of their soul-touching music and their sawal jawab using the singing. Namaskar.
Namaskar. Hi.
Hello. First of all, I would like to know a little bit about both of you. So tell us where you come from, your musical education, your background, what you do.
Okay, so I am mostly by profession. I am a freelance research scholar of history, and I had completed my MPhil research studies back in Calcutta, where my hometown is. I have been learning Hindustani classical music since the age of 6, and I think I'm still a student of Indian classical music because I don't think that one can really learn completely in their life. So we learn till our last breath. So for that, I'm not saying I've completed anything. So I'm still a student. My interests in music are mostly into the semi-classical genres of music, though I am still learning the classical Hindustani music, but I mostly focus on the semi-classical genres of music and the lighter popular versions of music as well. And currently I am in Abu Dhabi as a freelancer and also trying to increase my skills into all forms of music. So that's it from me.
Yeah. Thank you. Kaustubh.
Hello, I'm Kaustubh. I am by profession an engineer, electrical engineer, with my work on artificial intelligence, and also for the last 25 plus years I have been learning Hindustani classical vocal music, and that's also my profession. And interestingly enough, I am very glad that I could kind of merge my passion and profession. So my work is in AI in music currently, and I am doing a postdoc fellowship at NYU Abu Dhabi.
Maybe you can give us like a very brief idea of artificial intelligence and where these two things connect.
Artificial intelligence, as the name suggests, it's kind of mimicking human intelligence, And for human intelligence, you have to understand what cognition is. So basically, when we talk about AI on, say, audio signals, so we start from the audio signal itself, the acoustics that we all are talking. This is also acoustics. And if we talk about a music, then there are musical attributes like pitch or say melody, rhythm, and timbre, the texture of the voice, etc. And for the intelligence, like how humans perceive it, we have to have the representation how a human ear receives it, like the perception of it. So the frequency distribution or that representation of music. And then coming to the cognition, how brain receives. For example, if I play a tanpura tone, I can hum a tune. Oh. So this incoming signal is an acoustic signal. So this has a certain fundamental frequency which is getting registered by the brain, and I am able to reproduce that with the same tone. So this is becoming a perception and cognizing as a tone. But for making it as a root note sa, and if I have to make a music, for example, if now that a phrase becomes alive and we tag it a name that is this Rag Jhinjhoti. So this becomes a recognition. So with what I have already learned, I'm using that memory bank to match what the signal is. And this is kind of the human intelligence does. So what artificial intelligence is favored over human intelligence is their computing power and memory. So human definitely has memory constraints and computing constraints. So there are certain hidden relations which are not so evident by human perception. Those are very easily discoverable through AI in music. So AI is a fascinating name, but it's a very ground level, it's machine learning. So learning through examples basically. So if I give 1,000 examples of this Rag Jhinjhoti, then the machine will try to understand some patterns, what makes it Jhinjhoti and how it is different from say a very closely spaced other rag, for example Khamaj. So it's different but still in a parent, like child-parent relation. So Khamaj is a Tat, which is kind of compilation or a parent raga, Janya and Janak, if you go by the Carnatic terminology. So it is a parent-child relation, but still it's different. So the similarities and differences, all these patterns are learned from examples. So this is machine learning, and AI is just one step ahead. It's intelligent machine learning. So even if the data is not structured, it can structure data, but like I can come with more examples as we talk about.
Great. Okay, so maybe through a short example you can explain to us how this works, and more importantly how it helps. Like what are we able to get as a product of this whole process, or of this application of machine learning to music? What comes out of it and how it helps?
Okay, so there are two major aspects. One is purely academic and the other is applied. And for applied, it can like have a repertoire as vast as commercial applications. So in academic field, I would say in Indian music specifically, the music theory or musicology is very prescriptive. So like as opposed to Western music where you have a score, where the musician is following the score and reproducing, here the tradition is orally transmitted. And there are abstract terms like, for example, the Vadi Samvadi in a rag. So that is described as the note which shines. Now shining in a performance is a very abstract term, and it can have different manifestations. So it can be more accented, it can be more brightly sung, it can be in more duration. So having more objective definitions of these subjective terms is what AI can help. So what is described in writing in a very abstracted form, and it can have subjective interpretations, AI can help it objectify and visualize. So I'll show you some visual tools where you can visually see the pitch. So if I sing So it said that in this rag, these two notes are connected by a alankar called meend, and meend literally means a glide. But this glide can have different shapes. So if I have the same scale, now these are taught by the guru to the student in the Indian repertoire for maybe 1,000 times, where the student has the chance to mimic and get constant feedback. But for an uninitiated who wants to learn this rag, they are not able to identify or decipher what exactly it looks like. And if the application what we develop can show them how the pitch movement looks like, literally by graph, and if the student has little exposure to graph reading, they can mimic. And there are also applications like they can sing, and our application can match them together and give them feedback. Are you doing correct? So here you are going wrong, something like that. So this is one, having academic interests, so subjective to objectifying those terms. The second comes is scalability and reproducibility. For example, if we talk about musicological works, so then a musicological work is very kind of listening oriented. So they might take one concert by one artist and do a rigorous analysis and then maybe come out with an article of 20 pages. But that doesn't mean that the same idea can be generalizable across the genre. So it's a very one specific concert based interpretation, and the speculations are that this will kind of generalize through the genre, at least for that instrument or for vocal music or for some gharana. But that can't show evidence of a scalable kind of corpus. But what we can do is we can objectively model that, and by one click it can do for 1,000 such concerts. And we can either verify, prove or disprove certain concepts. So the scalability and also reproducibility. For example, a stalwart musicologist, after all, he is a human. So maybe what he or she has done in 1980s, if the same musicologist has to do the same analysis later on the same concert, it's guaranteed that it will not be the same. It's not reproducible. Because over this course of 30 years, his or her experience has changed, or the notions has changed, and there can be some human error. But with machines, we can at least reproduce the results. So this reproducibility and scalability over larger corpora, that's what our USP is. So this still is in the academic sphere, but coming to the more applied lines, for example, if you are trying to remember a song and you don't know the lyrics, there is no way you can search that song over the web. So how do you search songs like YouTube, Google, or maybe iTunes, these platforms? But what they search is all text-based search. So they search by the name of the song, or the tag of the song. But if you hum a tune, say, but you don't know the lyrics. But our machine can record you, analyze your pitch, and then go back to the song bank and say, okay, this Kuch To Log Kahenge is a very famous song, which is very similar to you. It will not claim it's the song, but it will show you recommendation. So that's the song search. Yeah. And it can also give you another 10 songs which are melodically similar, but you might not have thought of that because you always go by the lyrics. So if you ask for similar melody, you can search by melody. You can search for rhythm, you can search for rhythm. Like give me upbeat songs of like this jhapta or 5/8 rhythm. So it can search on those attributes. So this is one applied line, and there are works we are also doing with AI and music where you can search through music.
That is really nice because Google now has this image search,
right?
And a lot of time this happens because lyrics I can't remember a lot of times, and there is something playing in my head and I can't remember which song that is.
Exactly.
But I never realized in Google we could actually have something like this where you can do like voice search or.
And for example, a song from a different language where you can't type Arabic.
Yeah.
But like for example, Kulthum is a very famous Turkish Arabic Egyptian singer, and you want to search a song by her, and all the lyrics are in Arabic, yet you can't type it. But you can just hum the tune to the computer, and it will search and give it for you. So there are a lot of applications, and these are just a few glimpses. So all these machine learning or AI systems that we develop has to be evaluated formally to be accepted in the fora. So how do we evaluate the trivial tasks? So that is not our ultimate goal. Like for example, the task we do for this kind of Indian music or maybe Maqam music is the mode recognition task. Like if I give you one recording, can you identify which rag this is? Identifying a rag is not an ultimate task one might want to do. But these are the proxy tasks that shows that the machine is exactly learning what it is intended for. And there are also like real-time recognition systems. So maybe I can in the flow just show one small video. This is one video where I will be singing something, and here these lines are the pitch contour. So it will be taking the voice and analyzing the melody and plotting them here in real time. And then there are 20 ragas, and based on some scoring system, it will try to find which is the most probable raga.
Wow. Okay.
And hopefully it. You can see that looks like this. And it says Gapalasa. So exactly
Wow.
it transcribes. So this is all real time, and this is Rag Bhopali, and this bar is for Rag Bhopali. This is the most likely rag. But also what we advocate for is that raga recognition is not the ultimate, as I was just telling, but the space of ragas.
Yeah.
Like for example, in this same scale what I was singing before, so this is the scale for Rag Khamaj. So this becomes a certain aspect of Rag Khamaj, and then if I just change the Tanpura to Madhyam, so the tonal center changes. This becomes Rageshri, and if I go back to the path but change one note, this becomes Rag Madhyam. So the same phrase can occur also in parallelly different ragas. But when human starts cognizing one performance, sometimes their perception becomes very narrowed down. So once a tag is received, so this is Rag Khamaj, the vision doesn't go out to find the other possibilities. But if you look at isolated space and just stop there and find possibilities, where all can I go, diverge from here. So the space becomes visible. And for this AI based, what I was showing, raga recognition, it just doesn't only show you the most likely raga, but what are the possible ways you can diverge from it. So for a pedagogy, it's very important for a student to understand, because this is not there in the traditional pedagogical system, where you can stop and think what all the possibilities you can go off. And this is a byproduct of these systems we are promoting, that the raga space that needs to be visible, not the raga recognition. That's a very trivial task.
Okay.
But somehow that becomes important if you are, say, publishing to a conference and competing with others, that our system on this corpus is better in these terms, these evaluation terms. And this list can go on. So I just gave you maybe 4 glimpses of
Amazing. So you can you're basically giving a tool for someone to explore between two defined ragas or two defined.
Yes. And as you asked the question, so this is also a very interesting sphere about allied ragas. For example, in this same Khamaj scale, there are maybe 20 ragas which are very closely spaced, And also there are continuum, that the same phrase. So maybe I'll give you example from a different rag, but one typical phrase of rag Bhupali, and a typical phrase from rag Deshkar. Now you see the re is there, but very small, a short duration, and this is prescribed in the musicology. There's this re note can't be elongated in rag Deshkar. How much? Can't be elongated, but there is no metric that it's like 50 milliseconds, half a second, 2 seconds. No, there is no information. So this is also rag Deshkar, but this doesn't become rag Bhupali. And also Bhupali says you can take any duration of re, but they don't say minimum duration. This is also Bhupali. So then how would you differentiate between them? And what we have found very interestingly, we have analyzed music of stalwart performers. So if we just measure this duration between two rags, they keep a very clear no man's land. So the Deshkar highest and the Bhupali lowest duration is always differentiated by a no man's land, where no one kind of attempts, because that's a very dicey grey area. But that doesn't give us the exact technical boundary between the ragas. So what we do is, using AI, we interpolate that space and create artificial stimuli and get kind of listening behavioral experiment from experts, and we emerge with an exact technical boundary, and that is agreed among many musicians. So that's in their perception, but they don't explore that space, maybe with a notion that I might trade on to the other. So these kind of technical boundary of a rag, the estimation of that, there is no clear description in the text to musicology, but AI can give. So these are the kind of exploratory things and the space between ragas, as you are asking.
This is from a musically layman person, that classical music is still to some extent structured. It has a lot of definitions, and most of the examples or most of the pieces you are using for training your machines or for getting the right conclusions are from trained classical musicians. Now when you go to the domain of semi-classical, light classical work, this can be much more difficult, isn't it? Because there are so many dimensions, there are so many new things which get added up.
See, what you are asking for the training data, there are two aspects. So first of all, the music you are talking about, say for example, starting from Dhrupad, Khayal, Thumri, and then other lighter classical forms. So everything can be based on a raga. So if you take raga as an entity, these are the different identities of them. So Dhrupad is more structured, more rule based. Khayal, the artistic liberty is little more, and starting from Thumri and other forms, the lyrics takes over as a first seat, and maybe the bhav, the emotion. So if you are modeling melody, then you have to go for rule-based systems where raga is structured is the Khayal form. So this is about what you are trying to, kind of the right research question you are asking. So for the research question of melodic structure or melodic similarity, Khayal is the way to go.
Okay. What do you think, Nandan?
The semi-classical format of it is, I feel, it appealed more to the mass, because initially also the traditions of Guru Shishya Parampara were still rigid. Back during the time of the 15th, 16th centuries, this idea was a little bit rigid, and not everyone had the, they thought that they didn't have the audacity to kind of reach there. So why not dilute something and get something of that sort? I mean, if you can't, if you can't afford anything like expensive, you go for a lighter version of it, you go for a more affordable version of it, because not everyone can afford everything. But we can wish to want to have something similar to that. So I feel semi-classical genre of music is something like that, that it is, I mean, it started like that at least. that we cannot afford to learn classical, and maybe we don't have the proper talim. If we don't get the proper talim, where should we can't learn some corpus wrong. So we try to dilute the different sort of like ragas and come to a conclusion that yeah, this is a product of the dilution of the classical ragas. So I think semi-classical formats are more appealing to a larger population of the mass, whereas the classical music remained a little bit to a limited category of people. But I think those boundaries are constantly changing over time.
And the process matters. Like for example, I also tend to give more examples of cooking. So if you are cooking an Indian curry, so there is this kadhari and then handi and whatnot, like kolhapuri and different curries, which are using almost the same ingredients. It's onion, then tomato, and then some curd. But the order you apply them, or the vessels you put them in are different. So you're using the same tonal material, like khamaj will not change if it's in Dhrupad or if it's in a Thumri. But the way you approach that, what first you sing. For example, the sur lagawat. So this is more of this is more prescriptive. This is Drupal. I'll sing the same in Khayal. See the amiability, the way of vowels we are using, where pause we can take is more flexible. And the same thing if I do in Thumri. So the maqsad, what we say, is the same. So we say sa ga ma pa ni da ga ma ga. So this is the trajectory. But the way you take that, so normally we use this analogy, it's the same person. When it's a president of a country, it's quoted and he has some decorum. The footsteps are counted. You can't look here and there. But when you are going to your grandchildren and sharing food and telling stories, the same person is a different shade. So that's how it becomes form of Dhrupad, Khayal, Thumri and other like classical. It's a shade that changes. But the entity is same. It's just the identity that changes.
Very nice example. It was really nice to hear, because when you were saying that okay, this is Dhrupad and Thumri, for someone who doesn't sing, it's very difficult to know the boundaries. Like, you know, when you say it is Dhrupad, when you say it is Khayal, when it is Thumri, when it gets to the semi-classical region. So it's really nice to hear.
Interesting. From the spectrum of swaras, we came to the spectrum of from classical to light classical. We built a new spectrum talking about it. But maybe Nandini can tell us a bit more about what are your varieties of semi-classical, light classical music which you have experimented with or you are working with. What do you like the most, for example?
I think there is something in something which is based under the shadow of the rag, and in Bengali, in that term we call ragashrui. Rag and ashrita. I mean, a song or a composition which is taking shelter under the rag, basically. So it's a nice way of saying that yes, it's loosely based off the rag, but it's not following the exact grammar of the rag. For example, what is said about the Vadi Samvadi, how to halt, how much to halt in comparison to the others. It's always important to understand in comparison to what. Because you can halt for 1 second, so that the other one is 2 seconds. So 2 seconds for 2 seconds, one is the lesser halt. So for it, the reference work always goes on. So ragashrui music is something that I'm like really interested in, because it also gives me the freedom to try variants of my own. It's not considered to be an error if you incorporate some other corpus of a rag a little bit into the this genre of ragashrui song. If you are singing in particular variant of a rag, you can incorporate into it so that it can makes the audience go, oh, because it was not expected. It's not grammatical entirely, because I feel that grammar kind of makes me a little bit very hesitant and sometimes, very conscious, yeah. So it makes me conscious, for that reason I love listening to Bollywood film commercial songs, because I find a lot of interest into the fact that how the mass takes it. Music is something that should be relatable. Music is something that should be the common language. Even though we live in a subcontinent where there are like more than 100 languages that itself exists in our nation, in our country. It's not even different continents. So, since language is a big barrier in our musical tradition, so the tune, the melody of it should be able to connect us all. That's my idea of music. My basic idea of music has always been something which I am singing and the person who's listening to me can also relate. Even if that person comes from a layman's perspective, or if that person is a trained singer, trained musician, trained vocalist, percussionist, anyone will be able to connect with my music. That's my idea of music. My idea of music is giving. I really love Thumris, and nowadays I feel that Thumris are a genre that artists are attempting to kind of incorporate that into the mass commercial film music. So Thumri is now gaining a lot of recognition because Thumri mostly had focused on the deepest of deep human emotions. Thumri lyrics are very, very, lamenting, soulful, yet solitary. People are getting eased up to the concept of Thumri. I mean, Thumri was like, it's also difficult to produce it in Tal. In the rhythm sense, it's a difficult way to put it because, as I have conceived again, I feel that the khayal is more coming to a beat and Thumri is a little bit, lagging behind. It's a little bit, in the offbeat. I don't know whether you'll agree to that or not.
There is an artistry like Thumri, it's there, still not there, more of syncopated patterns. So that's technical, but like you're structuring a lyrics in a rhythmic framework, but that should not be visible. So that is more of an undertone.
Okay.
So that's the structure of Thumri.
It's difficult to put in words because you are speaking so much about Thumri. Did you?
Yeah. So for example, I'm just saying just one line of it because it's not a. So if we sing kind of the most like popular Thumri, like I think everyone like knows by now, is like that. Was Hamari Akkadiya, no? So Hamari Akkadiya is something which it's a very like long back composition and it's been sung by Shubha Guptuji and a lot more artists, and now it's recently being sung by Rekha Bharadwaj, I think. So for a film. So if we kind of like if we sing the Thumri to a beat, like beat per beat per beat, so it will be So do you feel the goodness of your Thumri?
Yeah.
You find the rigidness.
Yeah. But if we sing a Bandish and Khayal, we normally sing it in beat, but it won't feel so constrained. It won't feel so rigid. But in Thumri, it's like you take your liberty, you take some sass, you have some peace of mind, some sukoon into it.
The Thumri mein, the ada is very important.
Because Thumri was something that was also based and also shared the stage with dancing forms.
Okay.
It's not about the lyrics, how you say it. The kahant, padhant, and the beat structure, there's a tension, and that's the most enjoyable part. So sometimes it's the beat only and the silence is what is enjoyable. It's not the word like hamari atari ya pe. So that's spontaneity from the audience. That's the mastery.
And that also has an effect on the dancing.
Yeah, and also coming just one.
So you'll very carelessly, but the beat is there. So the sense of it's in the head.
It's in the anticipation.
I will break with a question. So we will go back to all these like rigid khayal, thumri and classical music. But you talked about you also enjoy the film music or you appreciate a lot.
A lot.
Give us an example of what are the recent. So I believe that nowadays even the Indian film music has started experimenting a lot. There is a lot of good music, I feel.
Yes.
Give us some examples of some recent examples of music which you are liking from the film, from the popular side.
There are a lot. I mean,
Give two examples of the most.
Give by singing maybe.
Yes.
One of the compositions, a very, very popular one. Everyone knows it, everyone hums it, maybe sings it. So, that.
Compositions which is very close to my heart, and especially after coming to UAE, I sing this composition like every day in my shower or anywhere because there is no rain here. I really miss I really do miss the monsoon a lot, and this stays. This has a very special place in my heart.
I really love, the voice of like KK, and if you even, I loved the voice of Udit Narayan as well. Back in 90s, of a 90s child would completely relate to that. And there I got like in 90s music, I got a lot of like rag based anecdotes to that, and it's very popular and it's very free flowing. So this was a more of a semi-classical. It has a lot of murkis and like maybe it's like more close to the Mach Khamaj rag. So
अजनबी तू भी कभी आवाज दे कहीं से है अजनबी तू भी कभी आवाज दे कहीं से मैं यहाँ टुकड़ों में जी रहा हूँ मैं यहाँ टुकड़ों में जी रहा हूँ तू कहीं टुकड़ों में जी रही है अजनबी तू भी कभी आवाज दे कहीं से.
So this was something which I grew up actually with. So this is something of a song which I feel that it's not an entirely rag based song. It can be toned down if you call this to be semi-classical. It's light classical. I feel not even semi. It's light classical. So I just sang two versions of it. One is little semi and one is light to differentiate the two melodies between
So that is also one example where it's very hummable, but there is one transition where you need to have expertise to follow what's happening. It's very appealing, but not easy to follow. You remember what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
But which is
The pitch is okay, just take it.
composition I was. Yeah?
Arbitrary pitch.
Okay, so this one is for Balasubramaniam sir, because he has been an integral part of my childhood. For all, I mean, for people who have grown up with his songs, innumerable songs. I listened to a lot of his other language-based songs as well, though I didn't understand it. Just so melodious and all. So Anilya Raja ji's composition, he's always, he's experimenting into how to popularize a rag or rag nuances into the mass. That was his intention throughout, and his compositions were brilliant. So this is from the movie Sadma. So this is Ae Zindagi Gale Laga Le. So I might jumble up the lyrics, but the tune I'm just mostly interested in. Ae Zindagi Gale Laga Le, Ae Zindagi Gale Laga Le, हमने जो हर एक बेस पल में गले से लगाया है ना, ऐ जिंदगी गले लगा ले। हमने ज़माने से दिल में बिठाने से ना 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 घर भर लिया, ना ना तेरा सहारा मिल गया है जिंदगी, ला 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 ला, तेरा सहारा मिल गया है जिंदगी, ऐ जिंदगी गले लगा ले, हाँ गले लगा ले, हो गले लगा ले. So this has
this cross line
Yeah.
is very intricate. Like even it takes some effort for a musician to find out what trajectory is being used. But it's so soothing to the ears.
Yeah, and it's so natural, the flow.
Yes.
But musicologically speaking or theoretically, structurally speaking, it's very critical.
To pick up where
The cross line specifically, like last at the very end, how he comes, and he uses a lot of techniques from Western music, also tonicization, like shifting the key. So like I can see a lot of different rags coming up. So it's the interaction between different rags. It's not even a single rag. When the sign and cross comes in the antara, but finally he comes to the same thematic melody. So and yeah, this is the form. Like if you have this kind of specific question of finding the structure and what possible melodies are, then AI can be of help of a specific case study, but not a mass corpus of light classical, which is
there
classical.
will be 3 compositions from 3 areas, eras. So that's like
And you can
joining
see
it.
how diverse they
Diverse,
are
yeah.
already.
So yeah.
Normally for music, when I listen to music, because classical music is not very easy for me to understand, lyrics is very important. So for example, even in Assam we have Bihu songs, which is very melodious, but the lyrics is very, very important there too. So because you're from Bengal, maybe you could say something about Rabindra Sangeet and how the lyrics are there and how the music is.
Rabindranath Tagore is mostly, for me, the first and foremost, he's a literature. So his compositions are mostly written, and like before he attempted to formulate the Rabindra Sangeet. Rabindra is based on Rabindranath Tagore's name, and Sangeet is music or songs. So if we like divided the two part of the word, so more than the music part of it, I felt Rabindranath Tagore had attempted to engage into the lyrics as poems. He wrote these Rabindra Sangeets initially as poems, as poetry. So when he wrote this form of poetry, because he had a lot of innumerable poetry to his name previous to the advent and the creation of Rabindra Sangeet. So he had poetry, music inside in his novels and short stories and everything else as well. So Rabindra Sangeet, for him, I felt that he wanted to engage the greater audience into these poetical verses of it, because poetry was the language I felt to some level for the elites, because you're not directly stating something, you are kind of molding it into a flowery ornamental language and talking about life. So for example, if I sing a very popular with the kids also, Rabindra Sangeet, very common, that is Phule Phule Dhole Dhole. Okay, this is a very, very common thing. Even if one doesn't understand the original lyrics, one will completely fall in love with the tune of it at the first go. So if you let a kid hear this song, say Phule Phule Dhole Dhole Vale ki bani duba Roki ba kunje kunje kuhu 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 Phule Phule Dhole Dhole Vale ki bani duba. So this tune is something very pure and very free flowing. So Tagore thought that yes, in order to connect with the mass, to people, so that they can hear and maybe not understand the lyrics at first, but due to the beauty of the melody here, they will attempt to at least learn it, or at least like memorize it.
And this song that you sang, it was in Parinita, the Hindi
yes,
version.
so that's the popular version I was coming to. So this is so simple of a tune. So it was made like into a popular film music, so that a lot of people can hear. A lot of Hindi speaking communities can also get attached to the tune and maybe sing it. It's a translation of it, so why not? Like that. So to popularize. So Rabindra Sangeet is something which many filmmakers, many commercial music producers have taken as a key to connect the East and the West as well. Not just the Indian subcontinent itself, but it's a key to connecting the East and West. And Rabindra Sangeet for me is in one word, it's that bridge. It was not just limited to a particular psyche or linguistic geographical area, but he also got a lot of inspiration for his stories, for his compositions and songs from other parts of the world as well. He was visiting Scotland and he was there in the New Year's Eve. Around the fireplace, everyone used to gather around and sing a ballad, okay, in the New Year's Eve. And this is the very popular Scottish ballad. I think it's so much popular thanks to Tagore, because he had taken the tune and had like completely extended it to the world. So Tagore heard this version on New Year's Eve, and this is a song in order to welcome a new era and to leave behind the old reminiscence of your past. That's what the song is about. So the song is like this. Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Should old acquaintance be forgot and all lang syne? Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Should old acquaintance be forgot and all lang syne? For all lang syne, my dear, for all lang syne, we'll take a cup of kindness yet for all lang syne. At that point, Tagore was very inspired from that song, and he wrote something in Bengali, and that's one of the most popular Rabindra Sangeet, which is, I think, it's the most popularly celebrated and performed Rabindra Sangeet of all ages, because at any memorials, any farewell parties, any school functions, this was kind of an anthem to the students to finish.
Graduation.
Yes, almost. This is to finish a function with. So you'll find similarity to he did not keep the rigidities of the Scottish ballad, because I sang it in the British, how the Brits used to sing, but the Scottish accent is pretty different. Let all acquaintance be forgotten, there's a Fordham town, for all acquaintance be forgotten, all anxiety. This is how this was, and it had a beat, like ballad should, and it used bagpipes and all, like the perfect Scottish setup. So he took that tune, he loved it, but of course he wanted to give a Bengali verse to it. He wanted to write a Bengali lyric to it, and of course for that you can't do like this, because it's almost like a marching tune. It's a very upbeat tune. He wanted to tame it a little and he incorporated Bengali words, and you'll see how similar the tune it is.
পুরানো সেই দিনের কথা ভুলবে কি রে, হায় সেই চোখের দেখা প্রাণের কথা, সে কি ভোলা যায়, আর একটিবার আয় রে সখা প্রাণের মাঝে আয়, মোরা সুখে দুঃখে কথা কব প্রাণ জুড়ারে তাই।
So he has completely changed the rhythm. First he has changed the rhythm, because the tune was so catchy. Anyone, if you can hear it for the first time, you will sing along.
I'll just take the liberty to just pinch in.
Yeah.
AI can find the source and
Yes,
similarity.
AI
That
can.
it might have been the source, or these are very similar, strikingly similar.
Yes.
So these are the points where we can come in, which is not very evident. So if you don't know the anecdote, you might not know this at all.
Yes.
But if your library happens to have both the songs, you can very easily find, here you go. So these two are very similar.
Yeah. So
Takeover experts have to be careful.
we'll just try to, maybe I'll sing a Ravindra Songit, and he might, because he comes from a classical vocal training aspect of it, he might try to kind of reciprocate or maybe parallelly sing.
Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, let's see how it goes. So before singing the Ravindra Songit, I should mention the two lines of it, because Ravindra Songit, the lyric is important. So we should mention. The lyric is Amaro Porano Jaha Chai Tumi Tai. So whatever my heart longs for, you are that. You are that, and you are that. You get the point why the lyric is important. So
it's very difficult
I
to-
combine the lyrics of the latest stanza into that stanza, so to get a full kind of meaning of the song. So it was
It's very
intentional.
difficult again to go back to other forms. So as spoken earlier, there is no prescribed one-to-one raga correspondence, but from this broad scale and some accidental notes, I conceive that this is very close to Rag Desi, which is happens to be a Tori form. So I'll sing a very small composition, traditional one from Adharan in Rag Desi, and then it also allies very much with a Pilu, rag called Pilu, which is more sung in the semi-classical and light classical forms. Maybe we can both try to do a tuning to ponder upon all the aspects
Shall I
of
sing
it.
the Ravindra Songit again, and you can
Yeah, just
continue?
yeah.
আমারও পরানো যাহা চায়, তুমি তাই গো, আমারও পরানো যাহা চায়।
Oh
Vessel